Let's start with what the process is for bringing broadband to the county. What are y'all doing?
Sure. So the process begins with the completion of what's called a low-level design. So that's, we take the feasibility level design, a higher level network overview that was developed previously. And now once the grant was formally awarded to All Points and Hanover County last August, we began the process of doing detailed design, the type of work that will actually result in, printed permittable, constructible work, so there's a package and a plan that we can hand over to a construction vendor. So that work we accelerated, that was complete in the second quarter of this year, actually ahead of schedule. And the process that we're going through now, the vast majority of our fiber lines in Hanover County will be not buried, but they're going to be attached to existing utility poles. For the most part, those utility poles are owned either by Dominion Energy Virginia or Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. That's just the way that the network works. There are going to be some other pole owners in there, but it's principally the two electric utilities who own the poles. And then so we have to go through a process with them to make sure that their poles can safely accommodate the new fiber lines that we want to attach to them. And that's really made up of the two different things that we look at. The first is the distances between the various things on the pole, right? So under the National Electric Safety Code, our new fiber has to always be at least 30 inches away from the nearest electric thing, which is typically the neutral. We look at whether or not that clearance is satisfied, not on a nice day in August, but during a 10-year ice storm event, right? And so, our cable has certain characteristics and it's going to sag at a certain rate, and the electric components are going to sag at a different rate. So we have to analyze all that information and make sure that in a really terrible ice storm, there's still the proper amount of separation between our stuff and the electric lines. The other thing we have to look at is the distance between the ground and the lowest thing on the utility poles. So the lowest thing on the utility poles is typically our fiber. And then we need to make sure, again, in a 10-year ice storm, that those lines are always going to be 18 feet, for example, above a public roadway, excuse me, or 9 feet above an area that only has pedestrian traffic, and there's certain other standards. So we go through that type of analysis. So what we're doing now, we have crews are out in the field with, it's really a fancy camera, and they go to every single pole that we expect to attach to in Hanover County, and then some adjacent poles, so it's about 10,000 poles. We have to send a human being out into the field to collect data about what's on the pole today, what's the height of all the different attachments. And then once that's called fielding, and then once that data is collected, it goes back into our engineering department, and they will analyze, what height do we want to attach to on this pole, and in order to do that, what needs to happen on the pole to safely accommodate our attachment. Once we've done that work, so we've collected the data and then we've prepared and submitted our application, it goes into the queue at the electric utility. Generally speaking, the electric utility has 60 days to take a look at the information that we've submitted, to verify it, check the engineering, do what they will, and then they issue us an estimate. So they'll say, okay, you can attach 19 feet 10 inches to this pole. And you're right, the transformer's got to get moved up 6 inches in order for us to do that. The cost for us to move the transformer is $2,000. And they say, do you want to move forward? And so once they receive our $2,000 check, which would be a very small check, actually, that's a bad example. It's like $7,500. But once we pay any associated estimate, then the electric utility has 105 days under the FCC rules to do the work. So they actually, again, this work will typically be outsourced, but whether it's Dominion or Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, they've got 105 days to go do whatever work on the pole. Then, if let's say there's somebody else, another communications attacher on the pole today, so you might have an old copper phone line up on the poles. Those attachers would have 30 days to move their stuff from the old pole to the new pole, and then, and only then, we would get a notice that says, okay, you have notice to proceed, which means you can attach to these poles. And the amount of work in make-ready that's taking place, not just here in Hanover, but throughout Virginia and the entire country, is truly unprecedented, right? So almost by definition, if there's a pole in the county where there is no cable or fiber today, we're attaching to it, right? And so we're doing orders of magnitude more of this work. So are all the electric utilities and other utilities throughout the state. And so it's a huge challenge to get all this work together, and that's really what we're focused on with our partners today. Now, once we have the work, the poles are made ready, and we have approval and all the required permits, we try and get good long runs of constructible work, right? We want to build up a big backlog of work so that we can bring in a contractor, they can bring in their best crews, mobilize once and have a whole lot of work to do. So we're building up that queue right now of constructible work. And then once we have a good inventory or queue of that work to do, then we'll bring in our third-party contractors, and they will start actually building the network that has been designed, blueprinted, and now permitted. And that will obviously, all these activities will happen on a rolling basis. And so then once fiber construction, our last mile fiber construction begins, we build the network in what are called fiber service areas. They're kind of logical local rings. We build those one at a time. We might be building multiple, but once an entire FSA is lit and built, then all of the locations that are served out of that FSA can begin getting installed and begin taking service. And so our plan right now, the timeline that we're on, and this will be heavily dependent on Make Ready in particular, is we plan to start building our last mile infrastructure in the fourth quarter of this year, and to begin performing customer installations in the first quarter of next year. But we will be lighting up additional fiber service areas on a rolling basis, throughout most of next year.
So it's a much more involved process than I think most people realize. I mean, it's not like you can just go out there and string up some cable.
No, it's a very, we're dealing with, in many areas, the reason why there's no cable or fiber there today is because there was so much make-ready work that it was very expensive to deploy broadband there, and that's why it's not there. And so by definition, we're going to the areas that are the most difficult, the most challenging to build to. The electric infrastructure is the oldest, it needs the most work. And so, a good way of thinking about it is that in the process of all points deploying our fiber, we're really working hand in glove with the electric utilities who are modernizing and hardening their electric grids at the same time. But everybody thinks, it's easy to understand why, everybody thinks, it's just go out and put some stuff on some poles. Really, that's almost the easiest part, and that's the last part. It's all the work, the design and the permitting and the making the poles ready. You have to do all of that prep work. And then when you get to the end, it's actually relatively easy then to hand over the permitted printed work to a construction vendor and say, go. So yeah, it's a very involved process. And then, once we have fiber built past your house, you're able to get service, but then there's another step. Once you install, we actually roll a truck and send a technician out, and they're going to run a little small line. It's called a service drop from the infrastructure that's on the poles to the side of your home. And then there's another step going from the small box on the side of your home through the wall into your home to connect with the wireless gateway that creates the Wi-Fi that everyone understands as their internet connection.
So bottom line, if I'm a Hanover resident and there's no internet, nothing to my house, realistically, how long am I looking at before that might happen?
So installations for customers who are in our project area, and people can go to apbfiber.com and put in their address and find out whether or not they're in the project area and give us their information. But locations that are in our service area will be lit. They'll be able to receive broadband service on a rolling basis starting in the first quarter of 2024 and continuing for the rest of 2024.
Okay, so by the end of next year, the goal is to have everyone
Substantial completion of the network by the end of next year, yes.
Okay. So people can go to APB?
apbfiber.com is the website that folks need to go to. Please enter your address, give us your truthful contact information, and complete the entire survey. That'll do a couple of things. It will help us know that you're interested in service so that when service is available at your specific location, 90 days before we know that's going to happen, we already have your information in our system. We'll know that you're interested, and so we can contact you and you can select a plan and schedule an installation window. So it's very, very important for folks to go to apbfiber.com, insert their address, and complete the survey and give us their pre-registration information. I think it's important, we really cannot overstate how significant the amount of infrastructure work that is taking place, not only here in Hanover, but throughout Virginia and throughout the entire country, right? There's a very significant push now to finally provide broadband, wired broadband to everyone who doesn't have it. And that is a very massive infrastructure challenge. It involves lots of different utilities, whether that's a telecommunications provider or electric provider or a phone provider. We all have to work together. We're managing extraordinarily complex schedules that are independent. So when we work with Rappahannock Electric Cooperative and Dominion, they have each of them, and so does All Points. We have areas where we can move faster or slower, and different resource constraints. And so we work very closely with our partners to manage their constraints, not just here in Hanover, but throughout the state, right? So we know Dominion is taxed in one particular area, and they might be focused on doing that step with another provider in another county. But we communicate with them about that, and we try and manage our schedule to load balance among all the different participants. So it's really important to understand the scope and scale of what's happening, not just in Hanover, but what's happening here in Hanover is happening against a statewide and really a national backdrop of building out fiber everywhere we can. So it's a very fascinating, if you're someone like me, it's a very complex, constantly evolving set of relationships and dependencies that we have to manage. And I think the great news for Hanover is that we've got a very, very engaged county team. We work very closely with the county staff, and we've got 2 electric utility partners, Dominion Energy Virginia and Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, who are active and engaged partners in this process, and they're really helping us to complete all the steps that are necessary to finally bring broadband to people who don't have it. So another important development that people should be excited about here in Hanover is that at the time that we began this project, we submitted to get this project underway back in 2021 and received about a year ago final approval to begin. We knew at the time that the standards for broadband and the eligibility for various state and federal funding sources would be evolving with time. Since we began this project and today, a couple of important things have happened. At the federal level, there's a new program called BEAD, which is going to make available another $1.5 billion in broadband funding for Virginia. And as part of the BEAD process, both the standard for what constitutes broadband has been changed, and what locations and where are eligible for funding for broadband has also changed. And so as a result of that, there will be a number of locations in Hanover County that are newly eligible for broadband public sector support at the state or federal level for broadband. So one of the things that we're working very closely with Hanover County on is making sure that if there are additional locations where we can help the county get its fair share of state and federal dollars, we're actively working and planning ahead to make sure that every available state or federal dollar for broadband in Hanover it comes to Hanover and is put to good use.